Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are looking at two of the N-Town play, pageants, playlets from within this sequence that this edited together interesting, strange text is. We are looking today at play 24, The Woman Taken in Adultery, and play 25, The Raising of Lazarus. Spoilers there if you didn't know how that story ended. It's as I say, it's one of these complicated texts. Is old N-Town. We think that the two plays we're looking at today are from an original cycle of some description, the cycle that's mentioned in detail at the beginning of the text in the bands. And we're doing these plays before we get into the big passion plays, the plays that are definitely crowbarred into the manuscript from a separate source, and which are really where, to a degree, the meat is, as it were. But we're going to find out what these two individual playlets will give us in this session. And today, a reading, hopefully, Internet Gods Willing, reading Accusator, Consolator number 2 and 4, and Peter is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I am not one of the Internet Gods, but I am a god nonetheless. Just not in this script.
Reading Scriba, Jesus in the second pageant, and Consolator 1 and 3 is...
Rachael. That's it for today.
That's all you're getting. You'll get more another day, promise. Reading Jesus in the first pageant we're looking at, and Lazarus is...
Hi, I'm David, based in London.
And reading Phariseus, Magdalyn, but we'll probably be pronouncing it as Magdalyn, and all the disciples is...
Liza Graham, in London. Thou shalt have no other internet gods before me.
Reading Mother, Martha, and Thomas is...
Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm from the Pacific Northwest and a retired English instructor.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading what few stage directions there are. I will also dive in occasionally to read some of the spare parts left lying on the floor, the young man and John. But without further ado, we're going to dive into the text. So if I could ask Jesus number 1, please, David, to step up to the oche, as we have a long opening speech from Jesus before a scribe and a Pharisee and an accusator enter the scene. There are no real stage directions in this sequence for a while, so you may infer them as we go. But this particular part of the text starts with a bit in Latin that says that this is going to be the woman taken in adultery. So take it away, David.
Nolo mortem peccatoris. Man, for thy sin take repentance. If thou amend that is amiss, then heaven shall be thine inheritance. Though thou have done against God grievance, yet mercy to ask, look thou be bold. His mercy doth pass in true balance, all cruel judgment be manifold. Thou, that your sins be never so great, for him be sad and ask mercy. Son of my father, grace ye may get, with the least tear weeping out of your eye. My father me sent thee, man, to buy all thy ransom, myself must pay. For love of thee, myself will die. If thou ask mercy, I say never nay. Into the earth from heaven above, thy sorrow to cease and joy to restore. Man, I come down all for thy love. Love me again, I ask no more. Though thou mishap and sin full sore, yet turn again and mercy crave. It is thy fault and thou be law. Ask thou mercy and thou shalt have. Upon thy neighbour be not vengeable. Again the law if he offend, like as he is, thou art unstable, thine own frailty ever thou attend. Evermore thy neighbour help to amend, even as thou wouldest he should thee. Again him wrath if thou ascend, the same in hap will fall on thee. Each man to other be merciable, and mercy he shall have at need. What man of mercy is not treatable, when he asketh mercy, he shall not speed. Mercy to grant I come indeed. Whoso ask mercy, he shall have grace. Let no man doubt for his misdeed, but ever ask mercy while he hath space.
Alas, alas, our law is lorn. A false hypocrite, Jesu by name, that of a shepherd's daughter was born, will break our law and make it lame. He will us work right mickle shame. His false purpose, if he uphold, all our laws he doth defame. That stinking beggar is wonder bold.
Sir Scribe, in faith, that hypocrite will turn this land all to his lore. Therefore I counsel him to indict and chastise him right well therefore.
On him believe many a score, in his preaching he is so gay. Each man him followeth ever more and more. Against that he saith, no man saith nay.
A false quarrel if we could fame that hypocrite to put in blame. All his preaching should soon disdain, and then his worship should turn to shame. With some falsehood to spill in his name, let us essay his lore to spill, the people with him if we could grame.
Ark, Sir Pharisee and Sir Scribe, a right good sport, I can you tell. I undertake that right a good bribe. We all shall have to keep counsel. A fair young queen here bideth well, both fresh and gay upon to look, and a tall man with her doth mell. The way to her chamber right even he took. Let us three go straight thither. The way full even I shall you lead, and we shall take them both together while that they do that sinful deed.
Art thou secure that we shall speed? Shall we him find when we come there?
By my troth, I have no dread, the hair from thy form we shall rear.
We shall have game, and this be true. Let us three work by one assent. We will her bring, even before Jesu, and of her life the truth present, how in adultery her life is lent. Then him beforn, when she is brought, we shall him ask the true judgment, what lawful death to her is wrought. Of grace and mercy hither he doth preach, and that no man should be vengeable. Again the woman, if he say reach, then of his preaching he is unstable. And if we find him variable of his preaching that he hath taught, then have we cause both just and able for a false man that he be caught.
Now by great God, ye say full well, if we him find in invariance, we have good reason, as ye do tell, him for to bring to foul mischance. If he hold still his dalliance, and preach of mercy, her for to save, then have we matter of great substance, him for to kill and put in grave. Great reason why I shall you tell, for Moses doth bid in our law that every adulterer we should quell, and yet with stones they should be slaw. Again Moses, if that he draw that sinful woman with grace to help, he shall never scape out of our awe, but he shall die like a dog whelp.
You tarry over long, sirs, I'd say you, they will soon part, as that I guess. Therefore, if ye will have your prey now, let us take them here in wantonness.
Go thou beforn the way to dress, we shall thee follow within short while. If that we may that quain distress, I hope we shall Jesu beguile.
Break up the door and go we in. Set to the shoulder with all thy might. We shall him take even in here sin. Her own trespass shall them indict.
And before we get to the stage direction and this dramatic action of breaking down doors, this is much more engaged than I was expecting. I mean, I was expecting people being really, really judgy. In that way, I was expecting. But yeah, I wasn't expecting people breaking down doors. I mean, that's that. I like action like that. Just a brief note in content warning in advance, which I forgot to do, is the closer we get to the Passion, of course, the more risk of occasional random anti-Semitism just popping up. So I think it's important to just note that before we get to anything particularly problematic. along with all the other problematic things that we're going to be engaging here. With a play called The Woman Taken in Adultery, we can expect that this is going to be full of many themes that might be tricksy. Thoughts from the room of the story so far, or the action so far? Liza?
Well, I don't necessarily think the anti-Semitism is random. I think it is with intent.
Oh, yes, yes.
As is and there should probably be a second content warning for misogyny, which we're about to have quite a bit of.
Yes, by the very nature of the play that we are looking at, that's sort of embedded in. Yes.
That's what makes this such a good maiden role. I get to be berated.
Yes, we're going to berate you very, very severely. Very. I hope you won't do it again.
Yes. Did you have more, Liza? Or just...
That was all I had.
Yes, Rachael.
I think I've only done one other End Town play with you guys, but this one I think, or maybe I haven't, but this one seems to flow pretty well. I think like the dialogue is very, very action oriented and very, I don't know, like colloquial. Very, very, very easy and to the point. It's not overly flowery, and it goes into it.
We get a bit from Jesus at the beginning, but otherwise, if people are discussing what they believe, it's in the context of a practical, active case. Liza, and then Eric.
Yes, we probably should have an editorial stage direction for Jesus to exit at the end of his speech, right? Or at least
unless he's standing by watching, he retires.
Or perhaps he's in the audience. He's one of the people rather than one of the players. Who knows? Could be that. But the scene between scribe and Pharisee, they certainly don't see Jesus, or they're talking about him, and they're not speaking as though he's there.
And that's one of the elements with medieval stagecraft, is that there's more room for that, just slightly distancing yourself from the action and just walking somewhere else, rather than necessarily technical exits. And with a text that doesn't give us that many actual technical exits, that sort of ambiguity is increased even further. Eric?
I was gonna say that it's interesting how these two people are basically bored, and they decide, and they hear Jesus going, talking about mercy and sort of forgiveness and that kind of stuff. And the first reaction that they have is like, "Hey, look, people are being adulterous over here. Let's go accuse them of something."
Yeah, so the entrance of the Accusator is timely in their view, I suppose. Mary?
I'd like to see Jesus have to take some action later when he goes to sit down and write in the sand, so that wherever we have him staged to begin with, it's good to bring him sort of stage center below everybody, where the dirt is or the sand is. That's where I'd expect him to move.
Yeah, the question of how much of this is on some sort of fixed stage situation, or how much of it can actually live amongst the audience. As we get to the later business in the play, we'll get more of that, I'm sure. Other thoughts from the room before we leap into stage direction time? Okay, so they're battering at the door, and roughly translated, here the young man runs on in his underclothes. His boots are unlaced. He's holding his equivalent of trousers, and the Accusator says,
"Stow that harlot, some earthly wight that in adultery here is found.
If any man stow me this night, I shall give him a deadly wound. If any man my way doth stop ere we depart, dead shall he be. I shall put this dagger put in his crop. I shall him kill, or he shall me."
Great God's curse might go with thee. With such a shrew I will not mell.
That same blessing I give you three, and queath you all to the devil of hell. In faith, I was so sore afraid of yon three shrews, the sooth to say, my breech be not yet well up-tied. I had such haste to run away, they shall never catch me in such a fray. I am full glad that I am gone. Adieu, adieu, a 20 devil way, and God's curse have ye every one.
Come forth, thou Stot, come forth, thou Scot. Come forth, thou Bismare and brothel bold. Come forth, thou whore and stinking bitch clout. How long hast thou such harlotry hold?
Come forth, thou quain, come forth, thou scold. Come forth, thou sloven, come forth, thou slut. We shall thee teach with cares cold a little better to keep thy cut.
Ah, mercy, mercy, sirs, I you pray. For God's love have mercy on me. Of my misliving me not bewray. Have mercy on me for charity.
Ask us no mercy, it shall not be. We shall so ordain for thy lot that thou shalt die for thy adultery. Therefore, come forth, thou stinking Stot.
Sirs, my worship, if ye will save and help, I have none open shame. Both gold and silver ye shall have, so that in cleanness ye keep my name.
Meed for to take, we were to blame. To have such Stots, it shall not be. We shall bring thee to such a game, that all advouterers shall learn by thee.
Standing ye will not grant me grace, but for my sin that I shall die, I pray you, kill me here in this place, and let not the people upon me cry. If I be slandered openly to all my friends, it shall be shame. Pray you, kill me privily, let not the people know my defame.
Fie on thee, scout, the devil thee quell. Again the law shall we thee kill. First shall hang thee the devil of hell, ere we such follies should fulfill. Though it like thee never so ill, before the prophet thou shalt have law, like as Moses doth charge us till, with great stones thou shalt be slaw.
Come forth apace, thou stinking scout. Before the prophet thou wert this day, or I shall give thee such a clout that thou shalt fall down even in the way.
Now, by great God, and I thee pay, such a buffet I shall thee take, that all the teeth, I dare well say, within thine head for who shall shake.
Hark, sir prophet, we all you pray to give true doom and just sentence upon this woman, which this same day in sinful adultery hath done offence.
And we have, at that point, Jesus is wandering by stage direction to follow in a moment. So maybe he didn't exit totally. Maybe he was sauntering around at a distance, and now they've seen him as he wanders back. I think there's so many things to unpack in this. Let's start with who I was reading. Yeah, I was so afraid of them in there. I never want to go in there again. Honest, this is not a lie. And none of this is a lie at all, because I've just been caught by the various authorities. I'm not buying anything this young man says.
Yeah, it's really interesting. They give up on punishing the man because he threatens them. So he's threatened to beat them while doing up his trousers. With the other hand, he's threatened to beat them if they try and sentence him. So he escapes consequences, and it's just the woman.
A man escaping all the consequences and it all falling on the woman. I can't imagine that happening in any context at all. I mean, that seems, yeah, that's the patriarchy working very strongly there. David,
This seems to inject a moment of physical comedy as well, really, with him rushing out with his stockings around his feet.
Yeah, I mean, Eric suggested in the chat that the dagger might also be a double entendre, and I quite like that about a semi-phallic object flailing about left, right, and centre. Yeah, it's a very interesting moment. It's a very brief moment.
Mm.
He's gone. There's no stage direction saying, but we can assume that he's scarpered, and we won't see him again.
I mean, linguistically, this is. This is such a contrast with what we were doing last week with the misfortunes of Arthur. It's such a different world. I mean, it's sparer, but it's punchy as well, isn't it? It's mostly monosyllabic words. It just kind of punches at you, really.
Well, and that's the power of insults as well as being able to construct very effective sentences there.
Yes, in alliteration. There's a lot of...
Yeah, and a woman caught in adultery is the archaic word there. So for those who have been updating it to adultery, it has been left as adultery for just to confuse you, because I'm cruel and mean. Eric,
well,
then...
it means the same thing.
It means the same thing. It really doesn't matter.
You say potato, I say potato.
Eric, then Rachel.
Yeah, I was going to say that I just realized the sort of irony of having the scribe break down the door in the previous bit that we did, because the scribe would not exactly be the strongest one in the room. Even nowadays, if you expect academics to break down doors, it's kind of like...
I suppose maybe he's the kind of scribe who writes on clay tablets. Maybe he's got the biceps or whatever.
Yeah, true. But also, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just very, very sort of different, very the escalation from sort of, hey, let's go accuse them, to violence and kill and, fire and brimstone and all that stuff is very, very quick.
Well, I mean, it's that thing. He comes out flailing and, this young man, pointing at this woman and running away. And then what does the woman do? She just immediately asks for mercy, of which there is none at all.
I like that she doesn't call after the young man. She doesn't have any sense that he's deserted her. She's just dealing with the person in front of her. And she seems to be impressed by the person who will be in front of her. So
yeah, and he also doesn't defend her at all. He threatens the accusers, but he doesn't say, don't go in there. He doesn't try and take her away from them.
No, I was just whoever wrote this, I think they have they have experience writing, and they have experience playwriting or acting, because in Scriba's lines there's a lot of S's and T's, and there's a lot of bite and hissing there, and I think there's in the language there's character suggestions to the actors as like through sound there, and just the way that this is flowing generally pretty smoothly, even though the content we can say we have an opinion on. I think just it has that it just has experience being performed, or experience on the writer's part.
Oh, Eric.
Well, yeah, that bit about what's it called? I think come forth apace, thou stinking stot, and all that stuff is very sort of or come forth thou stot, come forth thou scout, come forth thou bismare and brothel bold. It's it's building and so on and so forth, and it's sort of you can kind of feel they're kind of pulling her out.
And this is effectively street theatre in the sense that you need these sounds and these hard sounds to be heard at a distance. These plays are written this way because of, in part, the context of where they're being performed. There are limits to the kind of verbal tricks you can play with this kind of theatre, and this playwright seems to know what they're doing with it, or what they are doing with it, depending on it may be a composite text. There may be editorial interjections as well from when it was produced on paper. Rachel again.
I was going to say also what Eric just said about how, come out, just putting stage directions in the dialogue for the other actors to give them some suggestion of what their physicality should be between one another, their physical relationship to one another in that. I like to see that in writing. I like to see that.
Well, again, in the sense that the actors probably would have some form of accused script, perhaps. The dialogue, if it's certainly dialogue inferring what they themselves are also doing, it's very useful for it to be there, because they might not have as many stage directions available. So having it clearly there in the dialogue to go, oh, I should be doing this now, covers a lot of ground. Eric.
There, I forgot to unmute. I was going to say that what was interesting was the bit about "I pray you kill me privily," where let not the people know my defame, which makes me think like what was the sort of moral standard in England at the time, as opposed to, I mean, at the time of writing, as opposed to the time that they're supposed to be set in.
Well, that's an interesting question. I suspect to a degree that there isn't that much difference, in the sense of, this is about a public shaming, and the way the law may view what they do, they have done there, in the context of the time it was written, and also to a degree when and also to when it's set. So the idea of do this privately, as opposed to a public shaming. Liza.
Yeah, if you look at the proceedings of the Old Bailey, which are all online, there are some great trials where neighbors accuse each other of adultery, and they testify in great detail as to what their neighbors are up to, because of course if you accuse someone of adultery, you have to then prove that they actually did commit adultery, and there's all kinds of shenanigans recorded in great detail in these proceedings. And the accuser who informs on them is very much a type of that kind of the kind of neighbor who would accuse you. To us it seems terribly archaic, but adultery was a crime, and people did get prosecuted for it right up until right up until well past the 1600s.
Okay, I think we should largely speaking complete this play. It's not a long play. We have now the Pharisee has been calling out to Sir Prophet. This what do you think? What is your doom and just sentence? Possibly sarcastically as well, because on their point of view, this is in part a trap to entrap him in the wrong answer. And the stage direction roughly translates here: Jesus, while the accusers attack the woman, so that he may already have been doing some of this prior, while the other dialogue was going on, he's writing in the earth with his finger.
See, we have brought her to your presence, because ye be a wise prophet, that ye shall tell by conscience what death to her ye think most meet.
In Moses' law, right thus we find that such false lovers shall be slain. Straight to a stake we shall him bind, and with great stones breast out their brain. Of your conscience, tell us thee plain. With this woman, what shall be wrought? Shall we let her go quite again? Or to her death shall she be brought?
Jesus, stage direction again, roughly translated. He doesn't respond, but continues writing in the earth.
No, holy prophet, be merciful upon me, wretch, take no vengeance for my sins abominable. In heart I have great repentance. I am well worthy to have mischance, both bodily death and worldly shame. But, gracious prophet, of succorance, this time pray you, for God's name.
Again the law thou didst offence, therefore of grace speak thou no more. As Moses giveth in law sentence, thou shalt be stoned to death therefore.
Done, Sir Prophet, tell us your lore. Shall we this woman with stones kill, or to her house her home restore? In this manner, tell us your will.
In a cold study methinketh ye sit. Good sir, awake. Tell us your thought. Shall she be stoned? Tell us your wit. Or in what rule shall she be brought?
Look which of you that never sin wrought, but is of life cleaner than she. Cast at her stones, and spare her naught, clean out of sin, if that ye be.
And here Jesus writes in the earth, and all the accusers in confusion run in 3 different directions.
Alas, alas, I am ashamed. I am afeard that I shall die. All mine sins, even properly named, yon prophet did write before mine eye. If that my fellows that did espy, they will tell it both far and wide. My sinful living, if they outcry, I wot never my head to hide.
Alas, for sorrow mine heart doth bleed. Oh, my sins yon man did write. If my fellows to them took heed, I cannot me from death acquite. I would I were hid somewhere outside, that men should me nowhere see. Nay, no, if I be take, I am a flight, in mickle shame I shall be throw.
Alas, the time that this betide, right bitter care doth me embrace. All my sins be now unhid. Yon man before me, him all doth trace. If I were once out of this place, to suffer death great and vengeance able, I will never come before his face. Thou I should die in a stable.
Though I be worthy for my trespass to suffer death abominable, yet, holy prophet, of your high grace, in your judgment be merciful. I will never more be so unstable. O holy prophet, grant me mercy of my sins unreasonable. With all mine heart I'm sorry.
Where be thy foemen that did thee accuse? Why have they left us 2 alone?
Because they could not himself excuse. With shame they fled hence, everyone. But gracious prophet, list to my moan. Of my sorrow take compassion. Now all mine enemies hence be gone. Say me some word of consolation.
For those sins that thou hast wrought, hath any man condemned thee?
Nay, forsooth, that hath there naught, but in your grace I put me.
For me thou shalt not condemned be. Go home again and walk at large. Look that thou leave in honesty, and will no more to sin, I thee charge.
I thank you highly. Holy prophet, of this great grace ye have me grant. All my lewd life I shall down let, and fond to be God's true servant.
What man of sin be repentant of God, if he will mercy crave? God of mercy is so abundant, that what man ask it, he shall it have. When man is contrite and hath won grace, God will not keep old wrath in mind, but better love to him he has, very contrite when he them find. Now God that died for all mankind, save all these people both night and day. And of our sins he us unbind, high Lord of heaven, that best may. Amen.
And all together now, amen. Yeah, it's really it's this thing about Jesus just standing there, not saying anything. People keep talking to him, and he doesn't say anything, and that's going to be a repeated motif in later elements of his narrative. We will see that again. So yeah, and that's the thing that giving him power is the person who's just standing there, just calmly doing and everybody else is giving him the attention. So there's something about the sort of absence that is Jesus sometimes in these plays. You know, sometimes Jesus will come on and do lots of long speeches, and sometimes he's just a figure standing there doing very, very little, and there's something actually more powerful about that. And then we get comedy confusion. The 3 accusers look at the message in the ground that he helpfully has said out loud for them, and they go off and it's suddenly very extreme. Rachael.
No, I just think like for this play to write, let the person like who has sinned or something cast the first stone. It's so great for a play. Like, yes, stone us or something if you don't like the play, but you're not up here. And just the Jesus probably talking to the crowd, and then how you said the one guy that this woman was having a relationship with, him running off, and he ran out before Jesus even shows up. so, and how you were talking about his sincerity, I think that's part of the part of him leaving before, is that he's insincere, and here she's sincerely repenting.
Yes, and this question of moral instability. Everyone's talking about being unstable, being apt to sin. Yeah, and that's the thing that makes it very difficult for us as a play today, because of course Jesus, on one hand, goes immediately, you shall not be condemned by me. Yay! So long as you never sin again, you never do these naughty things again.
Well, honestly, that guy was kind of a douche anyway. Saving your most excellent performance, Rob, but I don't see her inviting him back for a second date.
I was talking about Jesus, but never mind.
Well, Jesus is not a douche, and in this play at least.
I just thought I'd make it clear that you weren't talking about Jesus for the audience at home. Yeah, there's something about what the young man is saying as he's leaving, because he's talking about of yon three shrews, and that he's suggesting the nature of this household, that it's not about a question of a relationship, that this is transactional.
I thought
I don't know if I'm misreading
I think you
that.
may be. I think the three shrews are the scribe and the Pharisee and the accuser. I think shrews is non-gendered in that case.
Right. Okay, I was completely misunderstanding what was being said at that point then. I thought he was going to them. I don't want to be in there. That same blessing I give you three, and oh no, yes, that does make sense. Yes, you're right. Misunderstanding. Moving on. Other thoughts more pertinent to the text, Eric.
I found it interesting that that line about now God that died for all mankind save all these people both night and day, but he hasn't died yet. So like it's kind of unless it's that thing of like temporal dissonance or something or whatever. Like we know that he hasn't died yet because he's still talking, but it's also like he's died in the time that it was written. But then I don't know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Time is an illusion. Everything's happening. It's all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. We've got shepherds. He's barely been born, and they're all talking about his wounds. There's plenty of references in the Old Testament sections to similar sort of dissonances. So absolutely, yes, it's a party quirk that is constant. Okay. Any final thoughts? I say final thoughts. Any additional thoughts on the play overall? That's it. It's relatively short. It's barely 300 lines long. It's fairly tight in its construction. It's a slightly more tricky play for us to be doing today outside of a very, very specific context. It's not one of those universal ones. That can be played to all houses. Any additional thoughts on any of the characters, any of the structure of the play? Eric and then Mary.
So like the universal ones, like the slaughter of the innocents, you mean?
Yeah, something that everyone can enjoy. Mary.
I wondered if plays like this were used to scare women straight.
It does seem like it might be, and because again, the man escapes consequences even from Jesus.
Oh, you don't know what Jesus does 5 minutes later. He's round the back. He never walks the same again. Anyway, moving on.
It's not often you silence Liza like that. That was rather well done.
I try every so often.
David, I'm going to come over to your house.
We're probably not that far from each other, actually. So.
It's true.
Do not break lockdown the rules, please. Okay, so that's it for Play 24 for the moment. We may add some final thoughts at the end. We're going to go on to Play 25 and the raising of Lazarus. So we're swapping Jesus's round. Jesus is now Lazarus, and one of the other characters is now Jesus. It's all, yes, everybody, clean slate. So here begins the raising of Lazarus, but before Lazarus can be raised, he has to be poorly and die.
God that all thing did make of naught, and puttest each creature to his finance, save thine handwork that thou hast wrought, as thou art Lord of high substance. O gracious God, at thy presence, of my disease now comfort me, which through sickness hath such penance. On this fair headache may I now see. Sister Martha and Maudlin eke, with hast help me in bed to dress, for truly I'm so wonderly sick, I may never scape this great sickness. My death is come now, I guess. Help into Chormere that I be led. My great disease I hope shall less, if I were laid upon a bed.
Lazarus, brother, be of good cheer. I hope your sickness right well shall slake. Upon this bed rest you right here, and a good sleep as say to take.
Now, gentle brother, for God's sake, lift up your heart and be not faint, and heavy household with us ye make, if deadly sickness have you attaint.
Forsooth, dear sister, and I may not sleep. My sickness so sore doth ever increase. Of me I pray you take right good keep, till that my pain begin release.
God grant grace that it may cease of sickness. God make you sound, or else our joy will soon decrease. In so great pains if ye lie bound.
Ah, brother, lift up your heart. Your heavy cheer doth us grievance. If death from us should you depart, then were we brought in cumbrance. Ye be our brothers, sib of alliance. If ye were dead, then had we none. Ye do us bring in distemperance, when ye us tell ye shall hence gone.
Dame Martha and Magdalene, how fareth your brother? Let us him see.
He is right sick, and hath great pain. I am afeared dead he shall be.
A man may have right great pity, the fervent heat of him to fell.
Take ye no thought in no degree. I hope that he shall fare full well.
He may not live, his colour doth change. Come to his bed, you shall him see.
If he long live, it will be strange, but as God will, so much it be. Cheer him, good friends, for charity. Comfort of him we can none get. Alas, what aileth me? Mine heart for woe is wonder great.
All hail, Sir Lazarus. How do ye fare? How do ye feel you in your heart?
I am with sickness all wounden in care, and look when death me should depart.
Ye shall have hail in leaving court if you will take to you good cheer.
When doth on me hath shed his dart, I shall have heal and lie on bier.
Be of good comfort, and think not so. Put out of heart that idle thought. Your own misdeeming may work you woe, and cause you sooner to death be brought.
With great sickness thou ye be sought, upon yourself have no mistrust. If that ye have, I wonder right not, that though ye be dead and cast in dust.
Many one hath had right great sickness, and after hath had his heal again. And many a man, this is no less, with his wantrust himself hath slain. Ye be a man of right sad brain. Thou that your sickness grieve you right ill, pluck up your heart with might and main, and cheer yourself with all your will.
Again my sickness, there is none ease, but Jesu Christ, my master dear, if that he wist of my disease, right soon I trust he would be here.
I shall go to him without endure, and of your sickness tell him certain. Look that ye be of the right good cheer, while that I go and come again.
Now, gentle friend, tell him right thus. He that he loveth hath great sickness, hither to come and comfort us. Say that, we prayed him of his goodness.
Recommend us unto his highness, and tell him all our heart's woe. But he comfort our heaviness, our worldly joy away will go.
The truth forsooth all every dull, as ye have told, so shall I say. Go to your brother and cherish him well, for I walk forth straight on my way.
What cheer, good brother? Tell me, I pray, what will ye eat? What will ye drink? Look what is pleasing to your pay. Ye shall have what ye will think.
My wind is stopped, gone is my breath, and death is come to make mine end. To God in heaven my soul I queath. Farewell, sisterin, for hence I wend.
And here Lazarus dies, etc. A helpful etc. there in these stage directions. I'm not sure how death. Surely death does not have an etc. You can. Anyway, I've always thought of death being a really well. I suppose etc. in his case. It's not so much a destination as a journey. Yes, so we've got sickbed. It's quite dynamic. I mean, we've got no stage directions again until that. But we've got a sickbed. We've got Martha, Magdalyn around Lazarus, and then we get these four figures who, in the reading here, are read as two, alternating, coming to visit. So perhaps they're coming through the audience, approaching the staging place and that kind of thing. And then one of them, number 4, is sent to go and spread the message to Jesus. Thoughts about this little sequence, about what's being said here? Anyone want to leap in? Or have you all got one trust? David, then Eric.
Just in terms of it being based on the gospel story, I mean, the Consolators are not in the gospel story, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Job's comforters and the introduction of them and their relationship to the sisters and to Lazarus.
Yes, I like that very much, Eric.
I find it interesting that the Consolators are sort of like, oh, you'll be fine, cheer up, man, and sort of like, have some I don't know, have some Oreos or something, or I don't know, have some spinach in Popeye's case.
Now, if only you'd offered that, Eric, I might still be here.
Yeah, I don't recall the biblical precedent of the Oreos, but it's Liza.
Well, in some translations, you see at the Last Supper, Jesus actually divides the Oreo into 2 halves, and seriously, that religion would have taken
more sense. 3s. That's how I would do it.
I thought that was the feeding of the 5,000, but never mind.
Moving on.
So the Consolators, they're basically the people who, like, if you tell someone you're depressed, and then they're like, "Have you tried yoga?" Like, they're the wellness enthusiasts.
Mary.
I see the Consolators in Zorba the Greek as being those terrible crones who come to a house as soon as someone's sick unto death. And they seem to know more about that than Martha does. You notice how Martha is offering food when he's just ready to peg out. And Mary, or Magdalyn, has a tendency to be the more spiritual speaker. So I think there's a good difference made between the 2 sisters.
Yeah, and yes, we're going to see more from them and for all of them about how they react also now to Lazarus's death itself. So yeah, I mean the sense that the Consolators are partly the fact they've sent one of them off to get Jesus feels like it's like the playwright going, right, how do I get A and B to meet? They need to hear a message, therefore they need a character to deliver the message, and it's sort of they expand from there. And I think there are other traditions in storytelling and other plays that deal with this kind of business as well. Additional thoughts before we move on? Everyone's too busy looking at the chat. Okay. The audience at home have no idea what sacrilege is being committed on chat there. Okay, so we will move on. So at this moment, Lazarus has died, and Magdalyn and Martha are left with the remaining 3 consolators.
Alas, for woe mine hair I rend! Mine own dear brother lieth here now dead. Now have we lost a trusty friend, the sibbest blood of our kindred.
Alas, alas, and well away. Now be we twain both brotherless. For who my heart is cold as clay. Ah, who shall comfort our carefulness? There had never woman more dolefulness. Ah, sister Magdalyn, what is your rede? What whiff may help our heaviness, now that our brother is gone and dead?
Alas, dear sister, I cannot tell the best comfort that I can say, but some man do us slay and quell. Let us lie down by him and die. Alas, why went he alone away? If we had died with him also, then had our care all turned to play. There now all joy is turned to woe.
Be of good comfort, and thank God of all, for death is due to every man. What time that death on us shall fall, none earthly wight that our tell can.
We all shall die, that is certain. But yet the blood of kind nature, when death thy brother away hath ta'en, must needs mourn that sepulture.
Good friends, I pray you hold your peace. All your weeping may not amend it. Of your sorrowing therefore now cease, and help he were buried in a clay pit.
Alas, that word my heart doth slit, that he must now in clay be grave. I would some man my throat would cut, that I with him might lie in cave.
Both head and foot now he is wound, in a sheet both fair and clean. Let us bear him straight to that ground, where that ye think his grave shall be.
We be full loath that pit to seem, but standing it may no better be. The course take up you 3 between. With careful heart you follow shall we.
And here they carry the corpse to the sepulchre, so some sense of changing place, or at least within the context of this stage.
Alas, comfort I see none other, but all of sorrow and care and woe. We doleful women must bury our brother. Alas, that death me will not slow. If I to pit with him might go, therein evermore with him to abide, then were my care all went me fro. There now great sorrow doth wound me wide.
This corse we bury here in this pit. Almighty God, thy soul mut have, and with this stone, this grave we shite, throw ravenous beasts thy body to save.
He is now brought into his cave. Mine heart for woe this sight doth kill. Let us sit down here by the grave, ere we go hence weep all our fill.
Us for to weep, no man may let before our face see this sight. Alas, why doth death us not fet, us for to bring to this same plight?
Arise, for shame, ye do not right. Straight from this grave ye shall go hence, thus for to grudge against God's might. Against high God ye do offence.
Sith I must needs with you hence gone, my brother's grave let me first kiss. Alas, no wight may help my moan. Farewell, my brother, farewell, my bliss.
Home to your place we shall you wise, for God's love, be of good cheer. Indeed you do right sore amiss, so sore to weep as ye do here.
Let us go home then to our place. We pray you all with us to abide, us to comfort with some solace, till that our sorrow doth slake and slide.
You for to comfort at every tide. We shall dwell here both night and day, and God that made this world so wide, be your comfort that best may.
And they move off, or do they? There's a whole series of questions because the scene is now going to shift to the delivery of the message by Consolator 4 to Jesus. Yeah, this excess of grief, it's not really, but you've got characters saying, that's enough now, that's enough grieving, because he only literally died 2 minutes ago. You should stop being sad now. This very compact. I mean, in hot countries you do bury the dead fairly swiftly, but the compacting of stage time here. Is there music? Is there a procession? Is there more in the dramaturgy that we just don't have because there aren't stage directions for them? Or would we infer that and add that? We've had really lengthy looks at grief before, usually again from the female characters. We've had this later in the plays Christ's Burial and Christ's Resurrection, where the lamenting is truly epic. But there's a little taste of it here as well. Thoughts about this little sequence of grief. Liza, then Mary.
Just that they talk about burying him in a clay pit, which seems like the sort of burial that an English person of this time would have. But then they bury him in the same kind of tomb that Jesus later has, possibly using the same set or the same pageant wagon. They bury him in a cave with a stone rolled in front of it, which, dramatically, visually, it's going to parallel Christ's resurrection and Christ's burial later. I got those in the wrong order. They bury him first, then they resurrect him.
It's the best way.
Which Magdalyn is also going to witness, of course. So, I don't know. That's interesting.
And how do we feel about Consolator 1 saying, "We'll come home with you and stay with you," and to, I'd be going, yeah, no, I'm good.
He's like, Martha, why did you invite him?
Yeah.
Because, they have consistently, through all this, they have been, no help at all.
The only one who's shown any sense of initiative and to do anything useful has left is Consolator 4. Mary, then Eric.
I think the hardest thing in this little scene is the mention made of the grave clothes, because you can't have them ready with the grave clothes. They weren't expecting him to die. And so there might be some necessity to have something white to put over him dramaturgically, because we're not going to see him all bound up. It's not like the gospel story. This is going to take us to a different place. So that's going to put something lightly across him at some point, but definitely not try to put a winding sheet around him.
Yes, something a bit simpler and a bit quicker, just for pure timing purposes. Eric?
Yeah, I was going to say that it's interesting how it's the consolators that start talking about, now he's wound in a sheet both fair and clean, as opposed to, the sisters are so distraught that they can't deal with it.
Or how many people are there? Maybe there's more unspeaking people. Is this a whole ritual? Is this incredibly complex? And I say the idea that the question of music, it's not uncommon for there to be music as part of this. So is there a whole funeral procession and ritual going on here that we're just getting the bare bones of because we don't have that many stage directions? Rachael.
The consolators, they just seem they seem like a chorus in some way, just the returning to them again and again after they say things, even though they're interacting with the other characters.
Yeah, it's especially exacerbated by the fact that we've truncated them down to 2 here as well. Other thoughts before we move on?
I compare them to Job's comforters. I'm also thinking in terms of the mystery cycle ahead to the crucifixion and the 4 soldiers that tend to be used in these plays with Christ. Again, that seems like maybe quite an interesting parallel.
Yes. No, I don't. Yes, the numbering of spare, parts like this as well. The way that they tend to have formal structures, 2s or 3s or 4s, and used in very specific ways. So yeah, that's a good thought as well. Anything else before we go a little deeper into the action? Eric.
After a funeral, I can't imagine someone actually wanting someone else to, like, even I don't know, neighbor or something, to stay in the house. It's just kind of like, it feels a bit weird. Maybe that's
It does feel weird, but first of all, these are in an ancient gender norms kind of way. These are 2 women who now don't have a man in the house.
Yeah,
So they need protection in some way. And also, there was a lot more, going forward to the time the play is likely written, there was a lot more communality to life then. Funerals, baptisms were big communal occasions. So was a labor. If a woman was in labor, half the neighborhood would come to her house. It was, your neighbors were all in your business.
well, I guess also it's that thing of, like, psychologically, sometimes, for example, I know people who's, like, the partner has died, for example, and they don't like being alone in the house. They can't stand it. It's just like they have to not be in the house or be doing something else that is completely. It's maybe it's a psychological thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, we still have, just to a slightly lesser degree, that sort of thing with bereavement or various tragedies of different kinds, where people will bring round, inordinate pots of food. They might not stay in your house overnight, but they'll still bring things, and there'll still be some sort of communal connection to people in trouble. Rachael.
What Liza's character Magdalyn was saying about that she wished that they had gone with him. That part of how needed a man was for 2 women at that time, like economically and socially. I think it's it's touching in and going into that, and that's part of the life. We literally would be better off dead than with no one to take care of us, because where are we going to get money, and where are we going to work?
Okay, let's go over now to Jesus. The Consolator 4 has been making the journey, so is occasionally labelled as Nuncius, as messenger in the script. But here, Consolator 4 speaks to Jesus, saying,
Hail, holy prophet, Jesus by name. Martha and Magdalyn, those sistren to recommend him to your high fame, and bade me say you thus. Lo, how that Lazarus, which that ye loved so, with great sickness is sore diseased. To him they prayed to him they prayed you that you would go, if that your highness therewith would please.
Deadly sickness Lazarus hath none, but for to show God's great glory. For that sickness is ordained alone, the Son of God to glorify.
They be in doubt that he shall die. Great sickness him sore doth hold. For fervent heat his blood doth dry. His colour changeth as they me told.
Go home again and tell him thus. I shall come to him when that I may.
At your commandment, O prophet Jesus, I shall him tell you as ye do say.
Come forth, brethren, walk we our way, into Jewry go we anon. I came not there full many a day, therefore thither now will I gone.
The Jews against thee were grim and grill. When thou were there, they would thee ha slain. With stones they sought thee for to kill, and wilt thou now go thither again?
12 hours the day hath in certain, in them to walk both clear and bright. He shall not stumble again, hill nor plain, that goth the way while it is daylight. But if men walk when it is night, soon they offend in that darkness, because they may have no clear sight. They hurt their feet oft in such murkness. But as for this, yet nevertheless, the cause, therefore, I thither will wend, is for to rise from bed express, Lazarus that sleepeth are all their friend.
Of his sickness he shall be save. If that he sleep, good sign it is.
Lazarus dead and laid in grave. Of his sleeping ye deem amiss. I was not there. Ye knew well this. To strength your faith, I am full glad. Therefore I tell you the truth, I wis. Our friend is dead and under earth clad.
Then go we all right even straight thither, thereas our friend Lazar is dead, and let us die with him together, thereas he lieth in the same stead.
Thee for to die, have thou no dread? The way straight thither in haste we take. By the great might of mine Godhead, out of his sleep he shall awake.
All hail, Martha and Magdalyn eke. To Jesu I have your message said. I told him how that your brother was sick and with great pain in his bed laid. He bade ye should not be dismayed. All his sickness he shall escape. He will bind here with the braid, as he told me he cometh in rape.
That holy prophet doth come too late. Our brother is buried 3 days ere this. A great stone stoppeth the pit's gate, thereas our brother buried is.
His lusts are dead. Now God his soul bliss. Yet look, ye none take heavy. Yet look, ye take none heaviness. So long to weep, ye done amiss. It may not help your soreness.
Out of mine heart all care to let, all sorrow and woe to cast away. I shall go forth in the street to meet with Jesu, if that I may.
God be your speed, both ever and I, for with your sister we will abide. Her to comfort we shall essay, and all her care to cast aside.
Mary, Magdalyn, be of good heart, and well bethink you in your mind. Each creature hence must depart, there is no man but hence must wend. Death to no wight can be a friend. All thing to earth he will downcast, when that God will all things hath end. Longer than him list, nothing may last.
I thank you, friends, for your good cheer. Mine head doth ache as it should breast. I pray you, therefore, while ye be here, a little while that I may rest.
That Lord that made both east and west grant you good grace such rest to take, that unto him should please most best, as he this world of naught did make.
And we're just going to pause there. An awful lot of scenes has occurred in suddenly very quick succession. We've gone from the messenger reaching Jesus, the Consolator 4 exits from Jesus. Jesus talks to the disciples, says we're going to go to Jewry. Disciples go, let's not do that. That's not a great plan. And he says, we will. And they say, well, hopefully Lazarus is going to be fine. And he says, no, he's dead. And then presumably they go off to travel. And then we're back with Magdalyn and Martha, and the messenger has made his way all the way back to this other thing. So I'm starting to think this doesn't really work on a single stage setup, that this is a multiple stage setup with journeying time between platforms. That seems to fit this pageant much better than anything else. But yes, because not only do they Consolator 4 comes back and says, "Hey, Jesus he's on his way. It's all going to be fine." He's already dead. And Martha says she's going to go out and join him. So Martha exits, and in a moment we're going to have Martha meeting with Jesus. Is that on the road? Is that outside of the stage area where everybody else is? Is this a separate stage area to where even the tomb is? Is that another separate space? So there's all sorts of questions about how fragmented this performance space is for this particular pageant. Thoughts from the room about the disciples who are in unison and really problematic. Or any other things that anyone wants to leap in with. Rachael.
I feel like for this one that there's just some unwritten entrances and exits for and by some I mean probably a lot, but I just imagine that I feel like this could be indoors or something like that, where it's just people walking in or out, or out. I'm not sure, but yeah. Also, just that thing of how these things always overlook the fact that Jesus is Jewish.
Yes, that's the really problematic element of the disciples' speech of, all those Jews are going to get us. Hang on, everybody's literally. There's almost not a single character. There's one character sort of in this sequence who's not anyway. Liza.
Jesus is Jewish. His mother is Jewish.
Everybody's
Joseph
Jewish.
Yeah.
Only Pilate later on. That's and a few other people. That's it. Sigh. Anyway.
Yeah. So the disciples seem to know Lazarus and to also and to say, thank you, he's going to get better. And then when Jesus tells them that he's actually dead and buried, Thomas says, well, then we'll all go and die with him. And Jesus says, you don't need to worry about dying. So, foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I did like Jesus's speech about walking by day and walking by night. The verse is really nice here, and it reminds me a bit of the Middle English poem Pearl, whose author is also anonymous.
Yes, the Tomb of the Unknown Playwright is a large one. Other thoughts in the room? Mary.
Just that everyone in the community would have known that Jesus used to stay with Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. The gospel writer points that out. So the audience, presumably at the pageant, would have realized that this was a place that everybody knew. Everybody knew that the master would come there. So that makes it seem natural for that to be the center of their focus.
Additional thoughts before we move on? Because, as I say, lots of action, lots of movement. Martha, I say, going out to meet with him, if that I may, sort of semi-asking permission there. And
Magdalyn has gone in to have a rest. Wherever in is, she is now resting.
So yeah, there's this constant shifting of people and potentially location is really interesting there. Eric.
And time, because she said that it's been 3 days. The guy just crossed the stage and came back. What the hell happened? Yeah.
Yeah, that's theatre. That's theatre for you. The someone walks across the stage. Time has passed. That's all you need. Okay, let's go on. So Martha runs up to Jesus, and in some fashion that is not clear, they will start pulling together all the other people towards them, or they will travel towards them. There is no stage direction to join that. But however, Martha goes to Jesus here.
Mm-hmm. Ah, gracious Lord, had ye been here, my brother Lazar this time had lived. But 4 days gone upon a bier, we did him bury when he was dead, yet now I know withouten dread what thing of God that thou do crave. Thou shalt speed of the high Godhead. Whatso thou ask, thou shalt it have.
Thy brother Lazarus again shall rise, a living man again to be.
I wot well that at the great last size he shall arise, and also we.
Resurrection thou must me see, and endless life I am also. What man that dieth liveth in me, from death to live he shall again go, each man in me that faithful is, and leadeth his life after my lore of endless life may he never miss. Ever he shall lead, and die nevermore. The body and soul I shall restore to endless joy. Dost thou trow this?
I hope in thee, O Christ, full sore. Thou art the Son of God in bliss. Thy Father is God of life endless. Thyself is Son of life and grace. To cease this world's wretchedness from heaven to earth, thou took the pass.
Of heavenly might, right great solace, to all this world me shall soon see. Go call thy sister into this place. Bid Mary Magdalyn come hither to me.
At thy bidding I shall her call. In haste we were here you before.
Alas, my mouth is bitter as gall. Great sorrow in my heart in twain hath scorn, now that my brother from Sith is lorn. There may no mirth my care relieve, alas, the time that I was born. The sword of sorrow mine heart doth cleave.
For his dear love that all hath wrought, cease some time of your weeping, and put all thing out of thought, in this care that you doth bring.
Ye do yourself right, great hindering, and short your life, or ye beware. For God's love, cease of your sorrowing, and with good wisdom refrain your care.
Sister Magdalyn, come out of hall. Our master is come, as I you say. He sent me hither for you for to call. Come forth in haste, as I you pray.
Ah, where hath he been many a long day? Alas, why came he no sooner hither? In haste I follow you anon the way. Methinketh I long or I come thither.
Hark, good friends, I you pray, after this woman in haste we wend, I am afeard right, in good fay, herself for sorrow that she will shend.
Her brother is so sore is in her mend, she may not eat, drink, nor sleep. Straight to his grave she goeth on end, as a mad woman wherefore to weep.
Ah, sovereign Lord and Master dear, had ye with us been in presence, then had my brother alive been here, not dead, but quick, that now is hence. Again death is no resistance. Alas, my heart is wonderly woe when that I think of his absence, that ye yourself in heart loved so.
I'm just going to pause there before we go a little further forward. So again, we've got a series of entrances and exits. Jesus talks to Martha, exiting there or moving to a different space there, as Magdalyn and the Consolators come in, and then Martha returns to them. So again, it's this constant flux. It's quite filmic in many ways. I mean, the way it flows is... because, as I say, it's not like necessarily these are proper exits. It may be just a slightly different space that they're travelling to. It could be exits. It could be that they're making quite literal exits, but it may not function that way. As we go forward, I'll take on Consolator 1 and 3 so that we don't get them confused with Jesus, which is just a thing starting to get in the way of the doubling. Any thoughts on this? We've got a constant thing of people berating these Martha and Magdalene for excessive grief. There's something really, and it's difficult to what the gender or what the responsibility of the Consolators 1, 2, 3, and 4 are. I mean, I'm just wondering who they are, if we are thinking of them as individuals, and what that sort of implies for a modern audience primarily.
I don't know if them saying that these women need to get over their brother's death so soon speaks to their own gender. I think they could be either gender, because you can have women who, you know, who are supporting, you know, patriarchal standards too. So I think you could have like a mix of different people, of different gendered people. And then also just the setting for where this play was done seems very different from the one just before it, because it doesn't seem as immediate. Maybe this is, I feel like this is more private or a more rural street that they're doing this on, or they have some space where an audience is staying still.
Yeah, the previous one felt very self-contained. It felt like it could be done on a small stage in a very isolated fashion. This feels like a very different dramaturgy, using a very different space arrangement. I mean, potentially could be done on a relatively small space, but it doesn't feel like that. David, then Eric.
Just to say, and it's a much larger cast than the earlier play, and I don't see how easy it would be to double either, because things the action moves on so quickly, doesn't it? That
yes, we can muck around with dancing between parts because we're just really trying to read and get to grips with it. But you couldn't do this with, you know, our number to actually do the play properly. You can't even get close. Eric.
I was going to say that I think it was one of the sort of the birth of Christ one where they were looking for the stable, where we had like sort of the disparate, the traveling basically. That was quite sort of similar to this, although not as go back and forth as this. But maybe they used a similar sort of setup, I'm guessing.
There was certainly some travel when we did the Weavers pageant, which was Christ in the Temple. Mary and Joseph had to go back and forth.
I mean, this is the thing, is that we're talking about all of these plays are effectively site-specific to wherever the production is and however they want to do it. There is no set pattern with medieval theatre as to how it should be done. So it really is a matter of saying for each individual play, how should this one be done? And with N Town, it's slightly harder to say, you know, authoritatively, because the text could be from completely different parts of you know, the region. Whereas York, we know at least York is a specific document about a very specific practice at a very specific time, and we can be relatively definite about how that would work, though details will vary. Here, it really is up for grabs.
This is just from, maybe it's just because I'm comparing the two plays that we're doing together, just because we've done them together. But this second one, I feel like maybe is not by a professional company too. Like I think it's well written, and I'm sure it's getting into the acting of it, but just the way it's written, it just seems so different and much more private in a way. Like I don't know how to say it. Like maybe it was commissioned by somebody and it was, yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is something that people undertook privately in a congregation, like a congregation, as opposed to like professional actors, which the one before this seemed like it was something in a company's like repertoire that they'd pull out on certain occasions or in certain places.
I think they could play this like it's Shrovetide right before everybody goes into Lent, because you're going to be thinking about resurrection later, but you're not going to be able to play it during Lent because nobody plays during Lent. So yeah, I can see a time in the calendar when it would be really useful.
There is an element when we're talking about private and devotion. You know, this document itself, this collection of plays, may have been collected as a semi-private devotional text. So, regardless of whether that was the intention of its original performance, it may have come to be here because it was felt that it matched that thought. So that might be even that may not be a directly accurate possibility. It may be thematically very, very accurate, if that makes sense. So many possibilities, so many questions. I think we're going to read on to the end of the text as best we can. We're going to be dancing around a little bit. I will be Consolator 1 and 3. Eric, I will also very briefly be John later on, in the same way that Eric will be dancing between Consolators 2 and 4, but he will also be Peter later on at the very end, and I'll still read stage directions, and hopefully this will all make sense. So somewhere around here, Jesus may be entering. Magdalyn, etc., are still in mourning. Consolator 1, Consolator 2 are commentating thusly. When we have mind of his sore death, he was to us so gentle and good, that mend of him our hearts slayeth. The loss of him doth mar our mood.
Be better neighbour never man stood. To every man he was right hand. Us he did refresh with drink and food, and now he's gone. Gone is our friend.
Your great weeping doth me constrain, for my good friend to weep also. I cannot me for woe restrain, but I must weep like as ye do.
And here the stage direction tells us that the actor playing Jesus is pretending to be crying at this moment, so Jesus indeed weeps. Behold this prophet, how he doth weep! Lo, he loved Lazarus right wonderly sore. He would not else for him thus weep so, but if that his love on him were the more.
A straw for thy tale, what needeth him to weep? A man born blind, did he not give sight? Might he not then his friend on life keep by the virtue of that same high might?
Where is he put? Tell me anon right. Bring me the way straight to his grave.
Lord, at your will we shall bring you right. Even to that place there he doth lie in cave.
When that we had the messenger sent, ere he had fully 1/2 mile gone, died my brother, and up we him hent. Here in this grave we buried him anon.
The might of the Godhead shall glaive you every one. Such sight shall ye see hence, or ye wend. Set to your hands, take of the stone. A sight let me have of Lazarus, my friend.
He stinketh right foul long time ere this, 4 days gone. Forsooth he was dead. Let him lie still, right even as he is. The stink of his carrion might hurt us, I dread.
As I have thee told, sight of the Godhead, thyself shouldst have, faithful if thou be. Take of the stone, do after my rede. The glory of the Godhead anon you shall see.
Your bidding shall be done anon full swift. Set to your hands and help each one. I pray you, sirs, help me to lift. I may not raise it myself alone.
In faith, it isn't heavy stone, right side of weight and heavy piece.
Though it were twice so heavy as one, under us 4 we shall it raise.
Now is the stone take from the cave. Here may men see a ruly sight of this dead body that here lieth here grave wrapped in pitiful plight.
And Jesus raises his eyes to heaven.
I thank thee, Father, of thine high might, that thou hast heard my prayer this day. I know full well, both day and night, ever thou dost grant that I do say, but for these people that standeth about, and believe not the power of thee and me, them for to bring clean out of doubt, this day or might they all shall see.
And here Jesus exclaims in a great voice,
Lazarus, Lazarus, my friend so free, from that deep pit come out and on. By the great might of the high majesty, alive thou shalt on earth again gone.
At your commandment I rise up full right. Heaven, hell, and earth your bidding must obey. For ye be God and man and Lord of most might, of life and of death. Ye have both lock and key.
and here Lazarus rises from the tomb. Questions about whether his hands and feet are still a bit bound, and Jesus says,
Go forth, brethren, and Lazarus ye untie, and all his bonds looseth him asunder. Let him walk home with you in the way. Again, God's might, this miracle is no wonder.
At your bidding his bonds we unbind, all thing must bow to your majesty. By this great miracle openly we find, very God and man in truth that ye be.
That thou art very God, every man may see, by this miracle so great and so marvel, all thing under heaven must needs obey thee. When against thee, though death be, he may not prevail. I think it falls to Eric to be all of the consolators.
We all with one voice for God to be yeah. We all with one voice for God do thee know, and for our Savior we do thee reverence. All our whole love now in thee doth grow. O sovereign Lord of most excellence, help us of your grace when that we go hence. For against death help us not help. For against death us helpeth not to strive, but again your might is no resistance. Our death ye may slake, and keep us still on life.
Now I have showed in open sight of my Godhead the great glory. Toward my passion I will me dight. The time is near that I must die, for all mankind his soul to buy. A crown of thorns shall perchin mine brain, and on the mount of Calvary, upon a cross I shall be slain.
So, there you are. That's the end of that. Jesus turning pretty much to the audience and saying, stand by for the next episode when, the passion is drawing nigh. I had crucifixion vibes here in the way the Consolators are lifting the stone. It's very crucifixion, trying to lift the cross. Workmen complaining about the job, it's it's not an exact parallel because they're perfectly willing and they're not grumbling anything quite so much, but yeah, just that had that little vibe to it as well. And obviously, whoever's playing Jesus needs to be able to do the full Brian for the great voice. I expect reverb for that. So again, because Mary brought this up about how much of a winding cloth is going on around Lazarus, but we got these notes here that that he's still quite bound up and that they need to untie him. So maybe there is a lot more business of them binding him in the earlier part than we're apparent. I mean, it can be cheated in production, but that's just perhaps another hint. Eric.
I just realized that what we've been reading is Lazar might actually be Lazare, which is the Greek, which makes more sense in my head, but I don't know. It changes the sort of the pattern of the what's called the meter, basically.
Go forth, brethren, and Lazare ye untie. I think it probably functions reasonably well. Actually, I don't have a knowledge of actually how it's supposed to be pronounced. So I'm not seeing an objection yet. It may be in practice that it leads us with a slightly odd stress, but I don't know. We'd have to go over it again. Other thoughts? I like that as a connection. It's the fact that Peter and John, who we've got these random disciples who get a few lines, and it's like, are they really, or are they doubling? Are they just consolators and they've just given them those names? How is that actually functioning? How would anyone? I mean, you probably know who John and Peter are. There might be conventions as to how they look. We all know who Thomas is because he's a miserable sod. I mean, Doubting Thomas's lines are just so clearly Thomas, and just going, yep, there's Eeyore. But yeah, the way that's structured. So yeah, as we move into also not only how the play ends, but also the play overall, and moving towards final thoughts. Rachael, do you have thoughts that you wanted to?
How you were saying before that there's music in this, and that there's not there's so many missing entrances and exits. I really I don't know, my personally I'm leaning towards this being performed in a church, and in the service, the things of the service happening in between. But then again, I'm thinking of it from like a Catholic perspective, just because that's part of my cultural background. Even though this, I'm not sure if you guys over there have had the Protestant Reformation yet.
This play has not met the Protestant Reformation yet. No.
So then maybe I'm right, and there are some of these sacraments happening in between, because the part towards the end with Jesus saying, "I thank thee, Father," I really feel like maybe some of the priests and the nuns are coming out here and doing this in a church for their congregation, and then, "I thank thee, Father," being like a group prayer, because there's parts where he starts to talk, like, to say all these people around me, that's a moment of acknowledging. I don't know. I think
there is a lot of liturgical practice in Endtown. This sequence of plays, there are a lot of we had earlier with the Mary play. There's a lot of liturgical business, music and text that you may associate. We have done a couple of late liturgical plays, which are explicitly supposed to be performed in church. The really early material for that is, they're not really plays, they're just sort of bits of the service where they speak a few bits of dialogue, and there's a lot of singing. But by the time you get to the very early 16th century, we've got two texts that are brilliant plays, and they're fully formed plays, but they are designed to be performed inside in a church. I don't know that the way this is shaped is designed for that, but I don't have. There's no empirical evidence absolutely that it couldn't have been, and that it wouldn't work in that way. And that's a really nice thought. I'm really liking that, because I wouldn't have thought that, because I'd probably have stuck with my outdoor many stages thinking. It's just in the way the dialogue is structured, in terms of it's very outdoors theatre-y. That's the only reason. It's interesting. The moment you put drama indoors, people start writing very different kinds of dialogue. So I'm really interested in that. So, but it could be. There's all sorts of room here, Liza.
But a church, especially, say, a cathedral-sized church, is very like an outdoor space in that, or it has its own acoustic challenges. You can't talk too fast. The echo amplifies vowels but eats consonants. And in a cathedral-sized church, you could have many stages. You could have, one in each transept, and one in the nave, and one at the other end of the nave. It's certainly possible.
Yeah, and the fact that it does feel like a slightly different dramaturgy to the one we did before, and some of the earlier ones we've done, it does feel slightly different. Not in an excessive way, but yeah, it is slightly interesting. Mary, then Eric.
Well, just as Rachael said, she saw elements of liturgy perhaps being present in the area. I think that's how you can make those few scattered disciples have something to do when the consolators or consolators have to be sort of held back, because naturally the people who came with Jesus would know, make room for him, he's going to do something, So you've got that sense that all eyes have to focus in the center person who's going to do the great miracle, and maybe the disciples sort of hold back the consolators. And I think that's true even in a church, when some people want to go forward before it's time to go forward. And there's always vergers or somebody there who can sort of keep them in their places until it's time to go up. So I think that's church practice.
And even if it's not literally church practice, it's the thing that will be extended from the church. And, if this performance is doing that, then it's feeding into a whole world of church practice that is still alive when this play is being performed and being copied and being turned into this document. Eric.
Well, just on the note about the cathedrals, that could work because you could get a lot of I think it was Salisbury Cathedral or another one, I can't remember, probably another one because I am very wrong in many ways. Where you had like sort of the Western facade would always have all the statues of saints and anyone who was important, but also you would get sort of like corridors behind the facade where you could get singers standing there. You could get like sort of, I don't know, trumpeters, but without being seen, obviously. So you could sort of imagine something like that being performed in front of a church or cathedral facade.
Rachel.
And the part where it says here Jesus exclaims in a great voice, I feel like in a space with good acoustics and I feel like that has some echo back. So like to ask to raise the volume or something has to, I feel like that's something that in a, I don't know, there's nothing that in it that says it's in an inside space, but I feel like there's how there's always like one spot in a space that's supposed to have the best acoustics or the best to be heard. I just feel like that has something to do with this being inside, even though there's no proof that it's inside more than it's outside.
Yeah, we've got other dynamics when it comes to God or various versions of God or Jesus speaking in different ways, sometimes multiple voices, sometimes voices off, even though the physical thing is on. So there's potentially all sorts of interesting dynamics to how that's done, rather than, of course, just simply be really loud here. It depends precisely how that's supposed to is meant to be conveyed. It's really interesting the way the phrasing for talking about Jesus pretends to be crying. I mean, I put in brackets, the actor playing Jesus pretends to be crying, but the way it's written is it just Jesus pretends to be crying. It's not Jesus who's pretending to cry. It's the fact of actor is doing some acting. Basically, he's doing some personation. Jesus is genuinely crying, and it's a really nice moment that actually, when he's doing the crying, because it's like he goes, where is he put? Right, it's like he suddenly has this moment of I'm going to do the raising now. It's like the decision has been made, and he's actually sort of cross with himself, and there's a sort of emotional moment there which we don't necessarily always get with Jesus. David,
is Jesus genuinely crying? Isn't that the moot point? That Jesus doesn't need to cry because he knows that Lazarus is going to be returned to life. None of the others do. So Jesus is pretending to be crying.
Oh, is he actually pretending?
I think he's pretending. I think that is what that means.
Oh,
I think that's the moot point of the drama. That the others are saying, why is he crying? I mean, and he is. That's the way I read it. So,
agreement or disagreement, Mary?
Remember, all Sunday school kids memorized the shortest verse of the Bible, which was Jesus wept.
Yeah.
So, from childhood, all Christian children believed he really wept.
Yeah.
Eric.
Yeah, but also in the text, he actually says that he will die, and for the glory of God, for the glory of the Son of God, something like that, he will be raised, or something like that. I don't know, further up, because I closed the document anyway. So it's kind of like, well, he knows it's going to happen, but maybe he just doesn't expect it to be as brutal. I don't know, perhaps something like that.
Well, perhaps weeping, at least in a moderate amount, weeping is part of the process of someone in your community dying. Now, the Consolators do reprimand Mary Magdalene for excessive grief, which seems a bit harsh given that she just lost her brother literally like 12 lines ago. But perhaps the weeping is something that needs to be done before he can resurrect the dead.
I mean, I mean, of course, you know, Mary is right. I know the passage, but you know, I think this seems to be the center of the drama. Is about the nature of mourning. I think there's something going on here.
I thought it was it was more this sort of infectious quality to this, you know, that because everyone else is crying, he just can't stop himself. That seems to be what the lines are saying. Or that's how I read it. But Rachael and then Eric.
I don't know. I was gonna say about how, you know, there used to be that profession of people who would like cry at funerals. Maybe there's some sort of commentary on that, or maybe he's just doing it because they're all doing it and he's humoring them. I don't know.
I just don't see Jesus humouring anyone. Why would he? Why would he humour them? He's trying to teach them things.
Well,
Jesus.
Well, he's teaching about the resurrection, isn't he?
But does he need to cry to teach them that? Liza, then Eric. Oh no, sorry, Eric, then Liza. Sorry, you had your hand up before.
No, yeah, I'm kidding. But I was gonna say that maybe it's sort of because supposedly, well, I mean, according to the faith, you know, all the texts and so on, he's kind of the physical embodiment of God, but he's still human, ultimately. So grief is a perfectly normal reaction in human terms, but sort of going, yeah, I'm gonna resurrect him and he'll be fine, kind of is the God part of the equation.
Liza.
Just that sometimes Jesus seems to have a dual reaction to things, and the reaction is in the nature of humanity and then Godhead. So, for example, in the garden at Gethsemane, he says, you know, he has the human reaction that I really don't want to die, and then when the crisis actually comes, he has the divine reaction that yes, this has to happen, and I understand why it has to happen. So maybe we're seeing a little of that here with the weeping, that the weeping is the human reaction because it's what humans do, and then his divine self performs the miracle. I'm not a Christian, but I did do medieval and Renaissance literature at university, so you know, read a lot of theology and stuff, but not an expert by any means.
It just keeps creeping in, doesn't it? We can't help it. Mary.
Just one more thing from me is that I'd love to see this acted in a crypt, because I got to see T.S. Eliot's Murder at the Cathedral in Canterbury's crypt, and it gives you a reason to believe that emotion is going to happen when you're in a space that reminds you of the grave, another cave, whatever. Certainly that justifies a lot of weeping on Jesus' part, but the fact was, in the story, he was outdoors when it happened. So it isn't necessary, but I'd love to see it done in a crypt.
Any final thoughts in the room? I'm not going to go around everybody. Anyone got any desperate final thoughts about these two plays? You can open it out from this to other things. Eric.
I was just going to say it reminds me a bit of not conflict of conscience, no, not quite that, but sort of something written by a minister for his sort of, I don't know, parish or something. It is very sort of sticking to the text, not text, but like, you know, the major points of the. If you were going to write out like the story of that, you know, Lazarus, it would basically be bullet points, and this is maybe what came out of it.
I don't know. All I have to say is my favorite thing about these types of plays is just the diving into the mystery of how and where were these staged that they were written like this? Because there's so much mystery there, and there's so much, I don't know, brain meat that it can, I don't know, the brain can just go and be like, I don't know, have all its thoughts to dissect and mull over.
Yeah, I just realized that we haven't actually had any demons or angels turn up in this one, or well, either. I mean, both in this pair, which is quite interesting because, like, if you consider all the other ones where it's like, the I don't know, slaughter of the innocents, or what's called the sort of temptation one, they kind of they're everywhere, but they're not here.
Any final thoughts from the room before I close the session? That is otherwise it for End Town until we go into Passion Play number 1. So the next sequence of plays, it's sort of numbered variously into separate pageants, but it's not. It's 2 big Passion Plays with little occasional splicings from other bits and pieces towards the end. And they're a very, very different text. And very much more in this line of staging potentially than the play that we looked at earlier. So I'm starting to think this might have some relation with the Passion Play. I don't know. So next time we return, we will actually be doing a play that's too long, in a sense, to do in one session. So we may have to do 2 sessions in a row to dig into Passion Play number 1. And same again probably for Passion Play number 2. So I don't know how that's going to be scheduled. I don't know when that's going to be happening. I don't even know when this is going to be released. For those listening to it on the podcast, or for those watching it on YouTube, this may in fact be being dropped months after we record this, rather than in the usual overnight returns. So this is a message from the past to the future. Have a lovely time, everybody. Thank you very much for all your wonderful work. Thanks to all the readers, and goodbye.